To understand the man who broke Hitler's favorite general, you must first understand the devastating shadow of the First World War. Long before he became the iconic beret-wearing field marshal known to millions simply as Monty, Bernard Law Montgomery was a young, rigid British officer bleeding out in the mud of Ypres in October 1914. Hit by a sniper's bullet through his right lung and saved only because a soldier who tried to help him was killed on top of him, taking the brunt of subsequent fire, Montgomery lay on the edge of death for hours before being dragged to safety. That horrific baptism by fire on the Western Front deeply scarred him, molding a ruthless core philosophy that would define his entire military career. Never again would he throw men into battle without overwhelming material preparation, ironclad logistics, and absolute control. Throughout the interwar years, as the world tried to forget the horror of the trenches, Montgomery obsessively studied the art of modern command, developing a reputational sharpness and an uncompromising nature that alienated many of his aristocratic peers in the British High Command. When the Second World War erupted, his dark predictions were validated during the disastrous Battle of France in 1940, where his brilliant handling of the 3rd Infantry Division allowed thousands of soldiers to conduct an orderly retreat toward the beaches of Dunkirk, rescuing a core fragment of the British Army from total annihilation. By the summer of 1942, the Allied war effort was spiraling into chaos in North Africa as General Erwin Rommel, the legendary Desert Fox, threatened to seize the Suez Canal, seize the Middle Eastern oil fields, and hand Nazi Germany absolute dominance over the Mediterranean. Prime Minister Winston Churchill, desperate for a decisive victory to save his political life and boost the shattered morale of the empire, dispatched Montgomery to Egypt to take command of the battered, exhausted 8th Army. Upon arrival, Montgomery inherited a demoralized force infected with a defeatist mindset and the psychological myth that Rommel was an unbeatable tactical genius. Moving with lightning speed, Montgomery immediately burned all existing retreat plans, gathered his commanders, and delivered a chilling ultimatum. There would be no further step backward. All withdrawal orders were canceled, and they would stand, fight, and win or die where they stood. He transformed Army morale by ditching formal dress for his signature casual sweater and iconic 2-badged black beret, driving out to the front lines daily to ensure every private soldier knew who he was and understood the exact plan. Behind this carefully crafted populist persona was a cold, calculating strategist who refused to attack until he held a staggering numerical and material superiority. When he finally launched the Second Battle of El Alamein in late October 1942, he unleashed a terrifying, continuous thunderbolt of artillery that smashed German defenses, shattering Rommel's forces in a grueling war of attrition, and delivering the Allies their first major ground victory against Germany, prompting Churchill to famously declare that before Alamein they had no victories, and after Alamein they had no defeats. Following the total collapse of Axis forces in Africa and the successful invasions of Sicily and Italy, Montgomery was summoned back to London to serve as the ground commander for the grandest amphibious invasion in human history, Operation Overlord. His meticulous planning for D-Day ensured that Allied forces secured their footholds on the beaches of Normandy, but as the war moved into Western Europe, his immense operational talent was constantly eclipsed by his explosive personal clashes with his American counterparts. Brash, fiercely arrogant, and utterly incapable of diplomacy, Monty frequently collided with Supreme Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower and openly infuriated General George S. Patton, whom he viewed as a dangerously reckless cowboy, leading to intense political friction inside the Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force. Seeking a decisive war-winning stroke to bypass the West Wall and end the conflict before Christmas of 1944, Montgomery proposed and pushed through his most audacious and deeply controversial plan, Operation Market Garden. The objective was to drop thousands of Allied paratroopers behind enemy lines in the Netherlands to capture a series of critical bridges across the Rhine River, allowing British armored columns to rush up a single narrow highway and strike directly into the industrial heartland of Germany. However, the operation turned into a tragic, devastating failure when Allied forces underestimated German recovery power and dropped airborne troops directly onto hidden, veteran SS Panzer divisions at Arnhem, resulting in heavy casualties and proving that even the most meticulous master of set-piece warfare was susceptible to disastrous miscalculation. In the winter of 1944, during the surprise German counteroffensive known as the Battle of the Bulge, Montgomery was given command of Northern American forces to stabilize the line, but his subsequent press conference, in which he appeared to take full personal credit for saving the American army, nearly sparked an outright revolt among U.S. generals who demanded his dismissal. Despite the raging political storms, Montgomery pressed onward into the heart of the Reich, maintaining absolute tactical control over his forces until he personally accepted the unconditional surrender of all German forces in northwest Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands at Lüneburg Heath on May 4, 1945. After the war, his sharp tongue and refusal to temper his ego continued to alienate politicians and military figures alike, yet no amount of personal controversy could diminish his massive historical impact. Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery secured his legacy as one of the most brilliant, polarizing, and unforgettable commanders in military history, a complex, flawed, and relentlessly driven strategist whose obsession with preparation saved tens of thousands of Allied lives and ultimately helped crush the Nazi war machine.